Hello YouTube, Goddard Radio Moscow here again with another beer review for you, as is usual. For this one we're going to head back over to Colorado in the USA, and we're going to revisit a brewery that I was very impressed with on the last review that I did from these guys. So we're going to revisit the Odell Brewing Company. My original review was of the IPA, but this time we're going to go for something at the opposite end of the scale. So this is the Cutthroat Porter, apparently a very, very nice, beautiful dark beer, so I really look forward to tasting and reviewing this guy for you. But as is usual with my beer reviews, then I'll take you through a very short history of the brewery. It is quite a short one for this, but if you don't want to stick with me for that, just fast forward a few minutes and you will go straight to the tasting. The brewery website's in the video description for you below to have a look at if you want, and the link to my other Odell review is down there as well, and I will be adding more Odell reviews in the near future. So the brewery was founded back in 1989 in a converted grain elevator built in 1915 on the outskirts of Fort Collins, and the brewery was founded by Doug, Wynn and Corky Odell, and this was just the second craft brewery to open in Colorado, and initially they had to educate their customers about what exactly they were selling. People just didn't know what craft beer was, and this was obviously very different to today, especially in Colorado, which is now one of the kind of premier craft beer states over in America. But Doug had previously lived in Seattle, and he'd been experimenting on and off with home brewing for about 10 years, and he'd actually managed to perfect two different recipes, and although they didn't have names yet, these would later become the 90 Shilling and Easy Street Wheat. But after brewing and kegging this beer, Doug would deliver it and pick up the empties and selling more along the way, while Corky would clean out the tanks and Wynn actually dealt with the bills that were going on with the brewery. In 1994 they constructed a brand new brewery that had an 8,000 square feet space with a capacity of 8,300 barrels of beer, and 2 years later they rescinded their draft only policy and started producing bottles and six packs to sell in the local alcohol markets. But after this there were numerous small expansions to the brewery. In 2009 the brewery had largely outgrown their facility, and they doubled their plant size to 45,000 square feet, and at this point they'd actually sold 45,000 barrels of beer. But the brewery these days are focused on experimenting with their current recipes and expanding their range to share with their customers, all while sticking to this kind of small batch craft beer principles. But the brewery are also very big on sustainability, similar to Sierra Nevada and many other breweries throughout the states, and a lot of their electricity actually comes from solar and wind power, and they have a smart heating and air system, and they also use recycled materials for a lot of the production, and apparently they recycle 98% of their solid waste as well, so a very environmentally responsible brewery. But today the brewery has a tap room and they offer brewery tours, and here apparently you can try their experimental beers that go through their pilot brewery system, and this is an exclusive tap room with this is a sort of exclusive tap deal with some local bars and restaurants, and they also serve food and donate the proceeds from that to local charities. There's actually quite a bit of local philanthropy goes on with this brewery, so they're very interesting to read about. But the brewery actually produce a number of beers, and they kind of separate them into 4 different series. So in the classic series you have the 90 Shilling, which is an amber ale, the Cutthroat Porter, this guy here, which is a London Porter, I'll tell you a bit more about that in a minute. You have the 5-barrel pale ale, the Levity amber ale, Easy Street Wheat, which is an unfiltered wheat beer, and Loose Head, which is an American session ale. In the sessionals, they have the Isolation Ale, which is the winter one, the St. Lupulin, which is a summer ale, dry hopped pale ale, and the Red Ale, which is the spring seasonal one. In the Woodcut Cellar series, this is a big bottled series. This one you get Woodcut 7, which is a Russian Imperial Stout, Fernet Aged Porter, which is a blend of the regular and Fernet Barrel Aged Porter. You get Celestrina, which is a Saison Ale, Tree Shaker, which is an Imperial Peach IPA, a Musti, which is a porter with grape juice in this one, the Meddler, which is an Old Brown Ale, Pond Hopper, which is a double extra IPA, and you also get Freak, which is a cherry and raspberry ale. You also get the 4-pack series as well, which is the Lugene Milk Chocolate Stout, the Mountain Standard, which is a double black IPA, the Double Pilsner, which is a Bohemian style Pilsner, and also the Mercenary, which is a double IPA. So you can see just from that there is a huge range of beers available from Odell Brewing Company. Go and check out the brewery website and see what you think of those yourself. But that's your brief history of the Odell Brewery, and we'll just get on to the tasting of this guy now. This one is a 5.1% porter. On the brewery website it doesn't actually tell you the sort of hop and malt profiles on this thing, so if Odell are watching, please include that on your website. Always very interesting for those kind of beer geeks of us to actually know that. But I'll just bring up the camera and let you have a little look at the artwork on this one. I do really like the sort of classic style of artwork that Odell put into their ones. You can see it there. It's actually very a sort of similar style, if you like, to the IPA. The IPA, of course, was in an orange bottle, and this is the Colorado State Fish, I believe. I think it's I can't remember if it's a trout. I think it is a trout, but this is the Colorado State Fish that they've put on this guy, so the Cutthroat Porter. This is the standard kind of Odell bottle cap on this one. I'll be keeping that, and it does have a little bit of a product description on the side. It says, not quite a stout, but definitely no lightweight. Cutthroat Porter is smooth and robust. Inspired by the classic London porters, we use dark roasted malts to create a deep, rich colour and flavour that hint at chocolate and coffee. Cutthroat Porter is our tribute to the Colorado State Fish, although we're big fans of small batches. Here to the currently threatened cutthroat population reaching mass quantities. So yeah, a very nicely presented beer. Just like you have a little look at that again so you can see. But this is a London Porter. It is 5.1% IPA, sorry, 5.0% ABV I should say. So let's get this guy open and we'll get on with the tasting. It's meant to be a very nice beer and I look forward to it. So as you can see, a nice smoky opening there, and we'll just get this out and into the glass. So a shout out again on this video to Lewis Patterson at Thistle News, who's my supplier of mainly Brewdog and Tool beers, but you do get the odd random thing from the States like this. So if you're watching from Aberdeen in Scotland, definitely go and check out his shop. The website, the brewery Facebook page is in the video description for you below, so check that out. But we'll get on with the tasting of this guy now. I'll just bring up the light and let you have a look at the colour of this one. So it's a very dark sort of rosewood or kind of ebony wood colour that this one has. It's got a finger of a kind of beigey, tanny, frothy head on this one. Definitely frothy rather than bumpy, but there's a good bit of bubbles just going up to the underside of this head. Very attractive looking beer. If I hold it up to the light, it does have a little bit of a kind of ruby tinge around the edges as well. So let's give it a smell and see how we get on here. I'll just put this light away, so I just usually use that to let you have a look at the colour of the beer, and I'll just check the camera's okay. So we'll just get this guy out. You're getting a lot of nice kind of dark, really a lot of dark sweet chocolate malts in here. Not really, it's the thing that's surprising about this one is it is quite sweet, and normally you only get that when you have a nice bit of red fruit in there, but there's definitely, the sweetness in this one is really coming from the chocolate, I think. So you've got a nice kind of dark sweet chocolate malt in there, a lot of kind of coffee. There's only a slight hint of sort of roasted character. The roasted and coffee character really is in the background. The main component that's coming out here is the sort of sweet chocolate. You've perhaps got just a little bit of caramel mixing in with that. Maybe that's what's making it so sweet, is some caramel in here. But it's a really quite a sweet smelling porter beer, really interesting. So you've got the typical elements you'd expect here, some nice kind of milk chocolate, some coffee malts, a little bit of roasted character too, some nice kind of sweet caramel, and sort of some earthy character. There's no real kind of treacle smell to it actually. I forget what they call it, what you guys call that in America actually, treacle. There is a name for it, that'll annoy me now. Molasses, that's it. But yeah, it doesn't really have any of that kind of molasses or treacle smell. But it's really sweet. Just take a little bit of time if you get this beer and give it a try and see what you can pick up from the aroma. But let's give it a taste. Smells really beautiful, so we'll get it into my mouth now. Yeah, it has this really nice kind of sort of milk chocolatey character to it, and the roasted character is rather quite subtle, which is, it makes a difference from a lot of these porters. A lot of these porters kind of go for the very roasted, dark coffee and bitter character. This one's a completely different take from that. It's really, just on first impression, it's really kind of nice and sort of milky, and I do like that, where the roasted character takes a little bit of a back seat to the kind of nice sweet malts. But it's very smooth, although the carbonation does play a nice little part in just sort of making that roasted bitter character very kind of subdued, if you like. It's really nice. But yeah, very sweet and very smooth in the beginning. You've got some nice caramel sweetness in there as well. You can just detect it a little bit. The roasted character, when you have the liquid in your mouth, you kind of get just a little bit of the bitterness at the front of the tongue, but the nice kind of roasted character just goes around the edges, and the sweet kind of chocolatey caramel malts just stick there. It kind of lays a blanket just over the palate. Really, really beautiful porter, this one. I can see, you know, based on the two beers I've tried from Odell, I'm pretty much sure anything you'll get from these guys will just be kind of top class. But yeah, a little bit of kind of roasted bitter character, the sort of coffee flavours come in at the start of this beer. The carbonation kind of makes it attack the front of the tongue. Then you just get this really kind of nice sort of sweet chocolatey caramel blanket that lays over the tongue, and you just get a little hint of the roasted character at the front and round the edges of the tongue. It's really, really beautiful beer, this one. If you do get the chance to try it, I highly recommend you do. Absolutely beautiful beer. I do wonder, this beer, you get just a little kind of bubble that passes down your tongue, and it almost has just a tiny little bit of a woody and vanilla element to it. But it's this beer is awesome. This is probably the best porter I've actually had. And in honesty, porter isn't a style that I kind of adhere to strictly to. I don't drink porters all that often. I do prefer, if I want a dark beer, I do tend to go for Doppelbock or Rauch beers, but I mean, I'm highly impressed with this, and I do like stouts as well. Dragon Stout is probably one of my favourite beers, and this kind of, for me, is quite interesting because it seems to find the middle ground between, you know, the really bitter porters and that nice kind of sweetness and light character that you get from Dragon Stout. This is a really good one, actually. If you like Dragon Stout, I'm almost certain you will like this beer. But yeah, the bitter, now that I think about it, the kind of bitter and roasted character comes out just a little bit more in the aftertaste. It just kind of sits at the front of the tongue, and it does spread a little bit into the middle where you've got the nice kind of chocolatey feel to it as well. But you know, what else can I say about this beer? Absolutely beautiful. If you like Dragon Stout from Jamaica and you want something that's a little less bitter from a porter, this is your guy. But overall, I'd say it's mid-bodied, it's got quite a light carbonation. It does have a little bit of a wet mouth feel to it, but it could be very slightly oily as well. It has a little bit of a creamy feel too, which is kind of where the stout character comes in a little bit. They say that on the side, it's not quite a stout, but it does have just a little hint of the creamy character, and I mean, that's perhaps the main difference between stouts. Stouts are more creamy, and you know, porters are a lot more roasty and bitter, and this one does seem to be the middle ground like that, just like I was saying to you. And it does have just a small little bit of dry character in the finish as well. But I mean, overall, like I say, a very, very beautiful beer. Definitely worth trying. I'm pretty sure, based on these two beers, anything you're going to get from Odell Brewery in Colorado, you're going to love. And it's a very highly regarded brewery in American craft beer circles, I guess. And that's probably why we're starting to get them over here in Scotland now. But I hope you've enjoyed this beer review. Give this guy a try if you do get the chance to. As I say, very beautiful beer. Let me know in the comments section your own thoughts on this beer. Always interesting to hear those. I hope you've enjoyed this review, and please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff, and I'll catch you soon with another beer review. Cheers.